What's up, hockey fans? Happy Thursday. Only one NHL game tonight, and it's between the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs. So Colby Cohen and myself will be bringing on a former Leaf and Bruin, John Michael Lyles, at 9:15 to talk about that game tonight and the other games around the league. This is Morning Cup of Hockey, presented by Betway. If you're going to place a bet on Betway. Please play responsibly, and remember, you must be 19 years of age or older. A lot to get into today. Last show of the week. Great games last night between Dallas and Vegas, and then Edmonton and LA. 2 one-goal games. The Dallas Stars are now in the driver's seat. They're up 3-2 after going down 2-0 in that series. Colby's going to tell me that he was right probably a million times, just like he told everyone yesterday that he's the only one who picked Colorado, and I'm sure he's going to tell John Michael Lyles that when he comes on the show. But I'm going to hand it over to you, Colby. What's going on? I see Oliver wagging his tail in the background.
Do you still think game 2 is a must win in that series? I mean, I wasn't even going to go there today. My point has already been proven, but you're the one bringing it up now.
When I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I will say, and this might be a hot take, game 6 is a must win for Vegas.
Yeah, I guess you could finally call it a must win. And
yeah.
I think they've been the better team all series, Dallas. I really have. I mean, I know they got a couple of wins early in the playoffs. Vegas, they kind of, come out, get some goaltending from Logan Thompson. They get that little bit of, let's say, bump for getting Stone back, which nobody obviously thought was possible except for probably the team. But then he's been largely quiet since. I know Stone scores that goal in the first period yesterday, but, Bruce Cassidy talked about the fact that he had to jumble the lines. He put him back together with a couple of guys that had some success with him earlier in the year. But, largely they haven't really gotten consistency from him. Like, he looks now a little more pedestrian than we've seen him look in years past in the playoffs. And kind of wonder, like, he's probably not 100%, as nobody is. I think we saw the injury report yesterday from the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, 3/4 of the roster is dealing with something. So,
and that's just round one.
The big question is does Vegas have, do they have enough pushback left in the tank to get it to 7? That's really the big question.
I would think so. They're not a team that I would count out. And, one thing I will say too, just for all the betting folks, if you had the over in that game, I feel terrible for you. 2-2. The over was 5.5. It was 2-2, 10 minutes into the game. Like, right.
You're thinking you thought you were sitting pretty.
Oh yeah, which you were. You are. 4 goals, 10 minutes in, and then they score one.
Goaltending early in that game. I mean, look, I wrote some of these down and kind of took a couple of notes on the goals last night. Obviously, the tip goal by Stone is there's nothing the goaltender can do about that. And then the 2-on-1 between Dadonov and Stankoven. I mean, Stankoven, he's always around the puck. Like, he's one of those guys that just when there's a loose puck, he just constantly seems like the first guy getting to those loose pucks, getting into those areas.
He's got a motor.
What a big trade deadline acquisition, and I'm using air quotes on that in case you're audio only on this, was Stankoven. I mean, you shored up your third line. You added this depth scoring type of player that is probably not a depth scoring type of player come next year. He's probably consistently in your top 6, but at times he's been on a line with Dadonov or Dadonov, whatever we're calling him this season. It seems to change every year. Who seems like he's got a bone to pick with Vegas the way he's played. I mean, he's been one of the most noticeable forwards for Dallas in this entire series, a series that Joe Pavelski's been largely quiet in. And
I thought Pavelski was pretty bad last night, to be honest.
He's just been quiet. He hasn't really been making plays. He looks a little slow out there. I mean, Robertson obviously gets a game winner last night, but he's been a little quiet in the series. And, Ropa Hintz has been a little bit quiet. So you look at the way that Dallas has kind of gotten this balanced scoring attack, and then you look at the fact that their big boys haven't even really taken over. Duchesne got his first goal last night. A goal that I thought was a little bit of a soft goal. I think Hill's got to come up with that. I know it's a high tip on the power play that ends up pinballing around, but to get beat right along the ice when you're that big, like, why not get your paddle down and make sure that you're not giving those types of opportunities up? Like, again, do I call it a bad goal? No, but just like Steve Valiquette said in the clip you
Mhm.
sent me yesterday,
Great clip.
you've got to come up with those types of saves. And the fact that actually both goalies let in soft goals last night. The goal that Ottinger lets in,
The
that
Carrier goal.
by Carrier.
Oh,
I mean, that's not a good goal. And I get it. Carrier makes a good play, and then Ottinger loses his positioning in the net. But that's not a good goal. Like, you're not going to win the cup giving those up on a consistent basis. And that series, every game has featured one soft goal.
I was gonna say, not only is that a bad goal, I thought that was a terrible goal. Like, Ottinger's in his net. I don't know what he was doing on that. And listen, I'm not one to critique goalies like you are. I feel like, because I don't know the position that well. But I saw that goal happen. I'm like, Dallas has all the momentum in this game right now. They came out flying, and for that goal to happen, I thought it was going to suck the life out of them a little bit. But credit to them, because Ottinger then came back and made that incredible save on Chandler Stevenson with like 3 minutes left on that breakaway. A great play by Stevenson too to get open, and I thought he made a pretty good move. But when you're in that tight, you got to try to elevate that puck. It's so hard to beat a guy like Ottinger who's so big down low when he's gonna lay flat and make a pad save. But great hockey game. I mean, this is the breakaway right here. Stevenson makes a great backhand forehand move, but Ottinger
this was what, about 3 or 4 minutes
three
left,
minutes
right?
left. Yeah, 3 minutes left. And something about this too. We've been talking a lot about play-by-play. Bob Wischusen was on the call. There was a clip, I think Pete Blackburn might have posted it, but when Wischusen goes like, saved by Ottinger, you can't even hear him say the word Ottinger because the building was so loud.
Yeah, well, you
the
couldn't
Dallas
hear,
Stars fans are unreal.
You couldn't hear one of the goals as well. Similar thing happened on one of the goal calls. He got completely drowned out of a goal call because it was so loud. So
loud.
Actually, the first playoff game that I ever did for Westwood One on the radio, my first NHL playoff game was in Dallas. And
really,
radio, there's you got to think about this. There's usually in the first round of the playoffs, there can be 3 or 4 TV crews in a building, because you've got home TV, national TV, potentially Canadian TV. It can even get to a point where you have Canadian, English, and French. There's a lot. TV gets precedent over radio. So our booth for radio is a little bit off-centered, a little bit further down, but we're way up top. So you've got a full view of the entire building. And when you're up that high, you can feel the shakes happening because everything sort of reverberates up through the top of the building at the American Airlines Center. And they really do. Like, they know how to turn it up for the postseason. It's good, not great during the regular season. But they really get going there loud in the playoffs. Here's a big question though now in this series.
Well, before you ask, I know what you're gonna ask me, but we got to address that Pietrangelo penalty.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that is the difference maker in the game. Like, you got to be smarter than that if you're Alex Pietrangelo. I know everyone has said it, but he comes around with a right hook on Tyler Seguin's face. Like, I'm pretty sure the ref is standing right in the corner too. I don't know
how well the refs saw it originally, because originally they called a 5-minute major, and it's not even
I think they're calling that so they can review it. I don't think you can review the minor.
Right. No, but I'm just saying they can review these hits to the head. So anytime they think that there's been a hit to the head, they can look at those. Look, they called it an elbow. They reviewed it. They took it from a 5 to a 2. But yeah, it's an undisciplined play by Pietrangelo. It really is. And it hurt them. It cost them.
And he's done a couple of those, I feel like, in previous playoffs. Like, didn't he have that cross check on Draisaitl last year? He's had a couple dirty plays, I feel like.
Well, he plays on the edge.
He plays a mean game.
Look, do I really think that was dirty? I mean, look, that's not really dirty. I think
you can't say it's not dirty. He punched the guy in the face.
Yeah,
what are you going to sit here and say? Like,
he backhanded him in the face. Like, it wasn't
punched him in the face with his glove on.
I don't know. It didn't. I think it's a lot dirtier to go into a scrum and cross check a guy right on the ribs as hard as you possibly can.
But that's a difference. But
to me, that's dirty.
It's still dirty though.
What Pietrangelo did, I mean, it's a dumb penalty. It's a dumb mistake. Do I really
punching someone in the face?
You're calling that a sucker punch? A backhand slap? A backhand like that is a sucker punch now? Isn't a sucker punch where you punch someone directly in the face
when they're not looking?
Right, but was that a punch or a backhand?
That's it's
Can
a
you
punch.
play this clip again?
He's wearing a
Have
glove.
you ever been punched in the face?
Yes, I have
Do
multiple
you have
times.
any idea what that looks like?
He's wearing a glove.
Yeah, I understand, which makes it even
It's not
better.
like it's a little backhand slap. Watch.
I mean, it looks like a backhand to me.
Really?
That's
Fucking
really
forearm
not
to the
that
head.
Bad. Again, the penalty fit the crime.
You're
2
really
minutes.
defending this as not a dirty
really
play?
that bad? It's
Come on.
It's like a love tap. What
Come
are
on,
you
get the
talking
fuck
about?
outta
You're
here.
acting like he decapitated him.
All I said was it was a dirty play, and you're like, I don't think that's dirty. What the fuck are you talking about?
I said it was on the edge. I said he deserved a penalty, but I don't really classify that as like dirty. It's just like it's dumb, but it's not dirty. Dirty would be actually sucker punching a guy.
There's dirty.
Like,
and
do you really think Tyler
Yeah.
Seguin was so hurt that he needed to go down there?
He was probably just caught by surprise. He caught a fucking punch to the face.
You don't think that was just to make it look bad to extra draw the penalty? Like, you think that little backhand knocked him square off his feet?
Dude, he got hit with his glove on. Like, are you kidding me?
I mean, I don't know, man. I just don't. I don't think that this is anywhere near as like egregious as you're making it out.
I'm not
to be.
saying it's egregious. All I said was it was dirty. I'm not saying it was egregious. All I said was it was dirty. That's it.
Yeah, let's see what the chat has to say.
I'm looking at the chat right now too.
Constantly being a dirtball. I think Colby wants to punch Johnny in the face right
Probably.
now. Bad take, Colby. Dirty hit to someone who's not engaged in a fight. It's not a hit. What do you mean dirty hit? It's a backhand.
Where is that? Who said dirty hit?
I'm running through here.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, look, I guess more people agree with you.
I'm just saying, all I said was it was dirty. That's literally
it. Does to me that does not look like a sucker punch to me.
So you just look at that and you go,
I have yeah. I'm like, okay, that was dumb. You're going to the box for 2 minutes, but like, did you really inflict any damage on Tyler Seguin? No.
That's not what I'm saying, dude.
No damage.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, but again, how dirty can something be if you didn't hurt someone?
I don't know. Like, I don't know.
I think it's a fair question to ask.
All right. I guess we got a comment on Facebook from La Familia boy to Drew Blood. If that counts for anything.
Okay. Drew Blood. All right.
But yeah, going to your question that you were going to ask. I know we got John Michael Lyles coming on soon.
Okay. Yeah. So Hill or Thompson for game 6 now?
I think now you set the precedent that you're going with Hill, so you stick with Hill. I think this series, at least, you got to ride Adin Hill out through the rest of it because, you know, to take Thompson out of the net after he was playing well, I thought, you know, Thompson kept or helped Vegas win those first 2 games on the road. I don't think it was his fault in game 3 or 4. I know there were a couple of bad goals in there. But if you take him out, like the message you send to both goalies, if you take Thompson out and put in Hill and then just take Hill out and put in Thompson, I think it just sends a bad message. So I would just stick with Hill for the rest of the series. What do you think?
I mean, I don't think I'm giving blind loyalty to Hill for the rest of the series. Blind loyalty to Hill the rest of the series. I don't think you're just giving him the net. I thought he was good last night, you know, good enough, but I didn't think he was great. Where I think Logan Thompson has actually stolen a couple of games in the series. Yeah. They go back to Vegas now for game 6. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be shocked if he went back to Logan Thompson. I don't think Adin Hill did anything last night for Bruce Cassidy to say this is the guy. I mean, he talked about his media availability and he talked about the fact that they planned on using both goalies.
But he didn't he say, like, you know, this is what we asked of Thompson to like get us to this point, you know? And now
he talked about that too. They didn't win. Yeah. You know, it didn't work again. It wasn't the goaltender's fault that they didn't win. They took undisciplined penalties. They didn't manage the puck.
Yeah, they played dirty.
I didn't think Jack Eichel played heavy.
Dirty play.
Okay. I don't think Jack Eichel's playing at the same level as he did last year in the playoffs. He's not finishing. I think they're just a little soft around the net, and so I don't think they're getting those goals that they scored all playoffs last year. I wouldn't be shocked if they go back to Thompson.
Yeah.
I don't have as good a feel for it, though. I'll be honest. I don't have a good feel for what Bruce is going to do this time around.
But you know him like the back of your hand, I thought.
4 years I played with him. So I played for him. And so I do kind of know the way that he operates. There's no doubt about that. I know all the shit that he talks to players and all the nasty things he says to guys. But I also know his lingo. I know how to read through his comments, and I know his mannerisms, the way he talks and the way he looks around and how when he's full of shit or when he's not full of shit. So yeah, I feel pretty confident in saying I usually have an idea what I think he's going to do, but yeah, I don't know on this one. I don't, but I wouldn't be shocked if he went back to Thompson.
I think he shouldn't have went away from Thompson, but I think at this point now you just stick with Hill. I don't know. I feel like it's not a bad option either way. But before we welcome in John Michael Lyles, I just want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Perasso. This is going to be our playoff preview presented by Perasso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care made in Italy since 1948. Perasso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at perasso-usa.com with our promo code Hockey15 in all caps, Hockey15. Let's welcome in the former Bruin, former Leaf, friend of the show, recurring guest, John Michael Lyles, in a different location. Where are you today?
I'm just in a little different spot. I've got a sick kid here downstairs in the guest room. So I figured sitting in the wine cave and listening to her cough nonstop is probably not what you guys were looking for this morning. So I had to adjust on the fly.
And you got the nice fresh fade going, it looks like. What is that, a 1 on the sides? What do you got going over there?
That's a 1 on the sides. I try and keep it tight because if I let it grow, the grays come in real heavy on the sides now. So yeah, it's I've been doing the broadcast for the Avs in the playoffs, the last 2 specifically, 4 and 5, and so yeah, just trying to look.
Did you go down to the Pepsi Center? Or I know it's not called that anymore, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, Ball Arena. So my kids' spring break, because we're in the mountains, falls late. It basically happens when Vail Mountain closes. And so we were in Hawaii for games 1, 2, and 3 for kids' spring break. And so we flew back Saturday morning. I stayed down and worked the Sunday afternoon game at Ball Arena, and then went back down and did in studio for game 5 when they were able to close it out.
Damn, Hawaii straight to the playoffs.
It's a tough life.
Yeah, that is pretty sick. All right, Colby, you're bragging.
Yeah.
What brag are you talking about?
Get your Colorado pick in, get it out of the way.
Listen, we've already talked about that on the show. We don't need to revisit that anymore. But you know, Johnny, you're with this team all year. You're around this Colorado team all year. Are you surprised at this playoff result? Because I feel like all year was the West runs through Colorado, and then a month left in the season, or maybe a little bit more than that, they got a little stale. And you know, it was the same thing in 2022. They go 2-7-2 or whatever going into playoffs, and everyone's like, it's Winnipeg's year. They can't score against Winnipeg. They can't beat Winnipeg. McKinnon's quiet against Winnipeg, and then I mean, they had one of the more dominating series that we saw in the first round for 2 good teams. There were some other series that were dominant, but not 2 good teams were featured in that series.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was quite similar to 2022, and you know, that 7-0 loss to Winnipeg there in the last week of the season at home, and really didn't generate a whole lot. Connor Hellebuyck looked fantastic, and you know, Jared Bednar said it. They really kind of took that game and evaluated where they were and where they wanted to be. And I think, you know, this team, they've been there, right? And they understand what it takes to win. And you know, you just, when you have guys like Nathan MacKinnon, who's driving that bus, who's you know, pulling the rope, and everybody seems to kind of follow. They know what it takes and what level they need to elevate their games. And that first round series showed it. It was minus game 1. And game 1, I mean, listen, they scored some goals and gave up quite a few, but there was an adjustment there after game 1 by Jared Bednar and his staff and the Avs in how they approached the defensive zone specifically. They saw that they could score goals. They were able to generate offense. And Winnipeg's a fantastic team. Connor Hellebuyck's a tremendous goaltender, but they were able to generate offense. And so for the Avs, it was, okay, we have to lock down the defensive zone better. If we're able to do that, we don't give up any, you know, crazy odd man rushes. They felt they were going to be able to generate enough offense And so you could see that. And with the amount of talent and the depth that they have, starting in the defensive zone was key. If they didn't give up a ton of grade A chances and really limited what Alexander Georgiev saw, they felt that they had a great recipe to win. Now, mind you, that may not be every series, but against Winnipeg specifically. And so you see the depth that they got. They were getting, goals from Zach Parise, the fourth line, Trennan, I just look at Lehkonen and Nichushkin.
He had a good series.
7 goals.
Yeah,
Nichushkin's got the Austin Matthews stat line: 7 goals, no
7 goals, no assists. Yeah, exactly. But to me, like guys like that, I mean, Nathan MacKinnon was kind of quiet.
Yeah.
I mean, he still led the team with 9 points, him and Makar. But at the same time, I mean, Rantanen didn't score a goal till game 5. That top line, Makar was unbelievable. But that top line was quiet. That Lowry line did a really good job of kind of taking them away. And the Lowry line was -3 in game 5. Mm-hmm. And Adam Lowry fully admitted it. He's a tremendous player. And that line really did a good job. So I just, to me, it was the depth scoring. They shut down that defensive zone really well. Yes, they still gave up chances. Georgiev reset after game 1. You got to give him a ton of credit because they wanted his head on a stick.
So.
Yeah, they wanted his head on a platter in Denver after game 1.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he comes back, phenomenal game in game 2 when he arguably could have just shut it down. And I just think that the depth scoring in the end was the kind of determining factor when you look at Lehkonen and Nichushkin. Lehkonen, to me, is the guy you love on your team. The guy is a playoff performer, and he just goes out and does everything well.
Yeah, I mean, he was the guy who, he had the back-to-back conference final clinching goal, right? He did it for Montreal against Vegas and then did it for Colorado against Edmonton in those back-to-back years. He comes up in the clutch. But something I'm curious about too, and Colby and I touched on it a little bit. We haven't really talked about the Oilers yet on today's show and their win last night, but can you touch on it a little bit more, just the difference in the side of the brackets? Like Colorado had to go through Winnipeg, and now they're going to have to go through either Vegas or Dallas. And you look at the other side, Edmonton goes through an LA team that, technically weaker. I know there's not really any weak teams in the NHL. And then they're going to play, a Vancouver team without their number 1 goalie or a Nashville team that has been, struggling here a little bit. So, do you think that gives a team like Edmonton almost the edge that Colorado has to go through these kinds of teams, or is it just not even a factor?
I think it's definitely a factor, but what I'll say is Colorado, having won a couple of years ago, they understand, you got to go through good teams, right? And now you got to go through Vegas or Dallas, and it's going to be a battle. What you hope is that it doesn't, if you get through Vegas or Dallas, that you're not so beat up that what you're probably going to face Edmonton, just given how they're playing. And I mean, their power play is 60% right now. People are saying it's the best power play of all time. And
also being gifted power plays last night was insane.
There's a lot of power plays.
Yeah.
But I think, when you look at it, that Winnipeg series is tough. I think the next series, regardless of who you play, is going to be even tougher. And you just hope that, everybody's hurt in the playoffs, right? But to what degree?
How hurt?
Yeah, how hurt? Exactly. I look at Florida last year when they got to Vegas, they were so banged up. Yeah, they almost had nothing left, right? And so that's what you're looking at is what is Edmonton next series? Okay, maybe they get through, maybe they don't. But if they get through, how is it 4 games? Is it 5 games? Is it 6 games? How brutal of a series is it versus what Colorado has to go through? If it ends up being Colorado Edmonton in that Western Conference final that we saw a couple of years ago, how beat up it would be unbelievable. And I think everybody wants that and would love to see that. And I'm no different. I'd love to see that again. I just think that the skill on display there and when you factor in what Edmonton's done, the players they've brought in since that. But at the same time, I love the depth that Colorado brought in, at the deadline. When you look at Middlestat, little quiet to start the series, but really played well and gave them, maybe he's not Nazem Kadri, but he gave them that second line center they've been looking for since Kadri left, right? And so they need that. They have to have that second line going to offset everybody focusing on the McKinnon line. So I just, to me, it's what do those next round series look like? And when those, when those teams get to the Western Conference final, how beat up are they? And then whoever gets to the Stanley Cup final, I mean, does Florida run the table? I mean, they look so good right now.
I don't see how anybody's going to slow them down in the East. And that's one of the main reason we wanted you to come on today was because you were a Leaf, you were a Bruin, and that's obviously the big ticket tonight. Mm-hmm. But before we go to that, I want to ask you this, because you played with Rob Blake, didn't you? Mm-hmm. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And I think you guys are pretty tight, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, good buddy. I don't talk to him regularly. He's in LA doing his thing. But I mean, when we see each other, we catch up and chat. And, he was my D partner for 3 years when I came into the league, and, somebody that I looked up to and just a huge, I mean, I owe him so much for my career. Just with, you give the puck to Blakey, it's going to the right place. Right. And so, yeah, I mean, we were talking about him the other night in the studio. It's kind of funny. We were talking about just a shot, but it was a puck was on edge. And I was like, yeah, Rob Blake used to tell me to pass him the puck rolling, because he would try and stop it on edge and then take a slap shot. And he's like,
knuckle puck.
Well, it was a knuckle puck, but it was a 95-mile-an-hour knuckle puck. And he's like, if I don't know where it's going, the goalie doesn't know where it's going. And he would score like 7 a year on knuckle pucks.
His shot was just so heavy. I mean, you could just see on TV how heavy it was. But the reason that I bring him up is he hired John Stevens. He hired Willie Desjardins. He hired Todd McClellan. Is he getting another head coach to hire? Or you get into these situations now where Luc Robitaille is the president. Yeah. Rob Blake is the GM, former teammates, right? I assume there's some sort of working relationship there. And I just start to wonder, how many guys do you get to hire? I feel like you normally these GMs get 2 coaches, and I'm just like, I wonder what the future is there, because the heat about Pierre-Luc Dubois is high. Rumor has it they tried to bring in Linus Ullmark, which would have obviously been very, if he doesn't, squash that trade, then that changes the LA Kings outlook. Although I don't think goaltending was the problem for them, especially the last 2 games.
I don't think so either. It changes the LA Kings outlook, but it also changed the Boston Bruins outlook too, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a piece going back the other way. There's something going back the other way.
We don't know what it is.
We don't know what it is. But I mean, listen, Boston had an unbelievable year, and they've looked good for most part of this series. But what was that piece going back the other way? Was it somebody else, forward something? I agree with you. I don't know what the future holds for Blakey in LA. Yeah. I mean,
I got to think that's getting hot. That seat's going to get hot though. And I've heard he's a good, I've never heard guys say bad things about him. Like I know you've talked about him before, and you've always said that. So you don't root for that kind of thing, but it's a reasonable question to ask, and it'd be irresponsible not to ask, because you just 100%. Only get so many hires.
100%. And at some point, there's going to be a lot of questions. And my youngest is awake.
Hi.
Hey, hi.
Are you enjoying your spring break?
Did you have fun in Hawaii? Yeah.
Right.
Monday morning, it was raining here, and she goes, "See, this is why I didn't want to come back from Hawaii, because of this weather." So, no, it is. I mean, it's a reasonable question to ask, and I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of that. And now the noise has picked up around Pierre-Luc Dubois, right? That trade was a huge trade, and now not only has it happened in one place, but now it's happened in a second place. Yeah. And I mean, it's true colors, right?
Maybe 3 places.
I mean, isn't it 3? Yeah, I was gonna say.
Exactly. 3. Yeah. So, but you know what I'm saying? He went from one place to another, and everybody's like, oh, we'll fix it, right? And then no, they didn't fix it. So then they're going to take him to another place, and now the noise is out there. Everybody talks about it. I mean, you go through Twitter and you look at Edmonton, LA last night, and half the tweets are, I didn't even know Pierre-Luc Dubois was in this game. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And that's, I'm not tweeting that, but I'm saying that's what I saw on Twitter.
Those are the tweets you're liking.
Well, yeah, but that's, I mean, now the noise is out there and everybody is focused on that. So yeah, I mean, I think it's reasonable that at some point somebody's going, they're going to have that conversation. Okay, what's the last hire? Was this the last hire, or is the next one the last hire? Right?
I mean, look,
you only have so many of those cards you can lay down.
He's gotten more than most. The way it's gone in the NHL as of late, with how quick everybody is to fire everybody these days. Rob Blake has certainly gotten more opportunities than most have, and so I just wanted to get your perspective. You work out in the West, you live out in the West, you've played with a lot of these guys. Now you're some of the generation, like you said, like your D partners and teammates are all running. Joe Sakic's another one. These guys are your teammates are all running teams now all over the NHL. So I guess if you wanted a coaching job, I think that would probably be pretty easy for you to get. But let's talk Boston, Toronto, because this series like few do. The ins and the outs. You've literally been a part of a 3-1 lead for the Boston Bruins, even though I believe you were a Maple Leaf at that time, correct?
I was a Maple Leaf. I was a Maple Leaf at that time. We were up 4-1 in Game 7 at TD Garden in the third period.
Yeah. So what do you make of this series? Like what can we expect here over the next, will there be a couple of games? Will there be one more game? I mean, there's so many questions that we will find out about over the next couple of days. And then whatever happens, one of these two organizations, a grenade is going off and a lot of things are changing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if either, whichever team loses in this series, you're correct. There's a grenade that's going to go off. Keefe made the playoffs, I think 5 years in a row since he's taken over, and one series victory, especially with those big four. And that to me is kind of the one thing they haven't changed in Toronto. Like you've got Matthews, Marner, Riley and Nylander, and that's the one thing they haven't touched, right? They haven't, they've tried to revamp their D. They've brought in different goaltenders. It's like Toronto is not an easy place to play. It is
6 home losses in a row, Johnny.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, I mean, like there's going to be it's just a circus, right? Like the first day that I was in Toronto for training camp, it was they opened the doors and the media came in, and I honestly thought like a barricade had broken or something. Like that like fans were coming.
Fans got in.
Yeah, it was like there was 100 and some odd media members coming in. You're coming from Colorado, and like nothing against Colorado, but it was like training camp was like 20 media members, maybe, right? And so that's just what you deal with on a daily basis. Now add in playoffs, now add in, the amount of pressure that's falling on, Austin Matthews, leaves game 4, doesn't play game 5, right? Like you can't make this stuff up.
This is like so bad.
Well, it's like
so bad. The optics.
Yeah, like Nylander doesn't play for 3 games. And so it's just like, it's like a built-in soap opera for Toronto, right? And you cannot make this stuff up, but yet they find a way to, they played unbelievable in game 5.
Joe Wall was great.
Well. Yeah.
Joe Wall was great.
Wall was great, and Boston did not play well. So now all of a sudden that cranks up the pressure on Boston because they lose the 3-1 lead last year to Florida. And Monty coached at DU. Like I know Monty really well. Unbelievable guy, unbelievable coach. I know so many of the guys on that Boston team still. Like I finished, this is 7 years that I've been retired, and there's still, Carlo, Marshy, Pasta, all those guys were there when I was there. So I definitely, I'm rooting for them because there's such great guys. And
you got
knowing
Reimer
Monty,
and Chatty, those are your friends.
Reimer and Chatty, exactly, right? Like, it's the hockey world is small, and I've played with all those guys at some point or another. And so, but yeah, like the pressure, I don't know that you could write or a script where there's more pressure on both teams at one point. And that to me is the kind of thing that stands out the most. And Boston, they're up 3-2. So it's not like they're, I think going back to Boston for a game 7, I mean, in the end, it's like you're rewriting 2013 all over again for Toronto, and you're rewriting 2023 all over again for Boston. So
neither
what
scenarios
gives, right?
are great, right?
Oh, it's honestly like I'm just happy to be retired at this point and not a part of that whole thing.
I'm happy you brought that up though, because I was trying to formulate a question asking you like which team has more to lose tonight, and obviously, objectively, it's the Leafs, right? Because if they lose tonight, their season's over.
Yeah.
But if you are Boston, like that blowing the 3-1 lead last year and then having that happen again this year, to me, is kind of being undersold, right? Like that is a big deal. And then on the flip side, Colby and I talked about it, I think, before game 5. And if you're Toronto, part of this also feels a little bit like 2018 Washington Capitals vibes. Like Ovechkin and that group, there was always that thing standing in the way. They couldn't get out of the second round, right? That was the thing. It took them like 10 years to figure out a way to win. They exercised that Pittsburgh Penguin demon and go on to do it. If Toronto comes back and wins this series with the amount of shit they got from Boston over the past decade, does it start to feel like this can finally happen? And then again, I've heard every Toronto media show talk about how the energy in the building tonight is going to be belief, right? We can do it. We can come back. But to me, it's going to feel more like nervous energy. Like, oh my God, they're going to fucking do it to us again,
Well, listen, what I'll say is I think Toronto can play a little bit looser tonight. You're going to have the home crowd behind you. And I just remember going back to 2013, we were down 3-1 going to Boston, won that game, came back, won game 6, should have won game 7, but Boston, Bergie and those guys, like they're unbelievable players. And unfortunately we didn't, but it was like you went back for game 6 and all of a sudden you had won game 5 in Boston and you go back to Toronto and it was like, all right, like we're going home. We've got a good feeling. And like, it's that first 10 minutes you feed off the crowd's energy and you have the fans behind you because they lost the last 2 in Toronto.
Yeah.
And they walked out of there after game 4 and the fans were essentially booing them. Right. So I think to me, like Toronto definitely has a little bit more, looser feel tonight going into game 6. Now, mind you, if Boston puts one in early, then that changes really quickly. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I agree with you, the Washington Capitals vibes, but if they beat Boston, Florida's sitting there waiting for them. Right. Yeah. And so, I mean, to me, Florida they've been kind of the favorite in my mind since day one of the season, given where they went last year and what they, their depth, they're mean, they can skate, they're skilled, like they're scary to me. And Bob's playing out of his mind. Right. So okay, you get past Boston, you exercise the demons, but then Florida's waiting for you, right?
Yeah,
so
it's not going to go well for whoever wins this series. I have to self-admittedly, I drank the Kool-Aid on how well Tampa played the last month of the season and how lackluster Florida played. I made that mistake with them. I didn't make it with Colorado because I was like, no, Colorado's going to win. But I did make that with Tampa. I feel like an idiot. I picked Tampa to win the series. I really did. I thought that Vasilevsky was going to dial in, and I thought he was Mr. Playoffs. And I'm like, there's no way Bob has this 2 years in a row. And I honestly, I can't believe I picked against Florida because again, 3 months ago, Florida was here and everybody else was chasing them in the entire league. It wasn't even that close.
It's true. And I thought that it was going to be a closer series. Now, mind you, early on, I think it could have gone either way. I just think about the Bob save, the spinorama on Dumba. Like that, to me, if that goes in, I think that changes the entire series.
It's 3-2 in that game instead of 2-2. And then now all of a sudden Florida's got to play from behind, which they barely did in the series.
They barely did. Exactly. So yeah, to me, I think it was closer than the 4-1 series score. But yeah, I don't know. Florida they just look good, and they're getting guys back. They're going to get guys back. Sam Bennett, Lomberg, guys like that, get the depth guys that can
those
provide.
Those guys win you playoff series. They do.
We say it every broadcast, and somebody, I forget who said this to me. It might have been Dan Heino, but like your first and second liners get you to the playoffs. If they hold serve in the playoffs, you're good. as long as your third and fourth liners can provide some scoring, because third and fourth liners win you playoff series. First and second liners get you to the playoffs. Third and fourth liners win you playoff series.
Look at that Florida Tampa series. That was the difference. You've got, the fourth line when they bring Okposo into the lineup in that in game, what was it, 3? Yeah. And Oppo and was it Laurent? They get 2 goals that game. And I even said to Johnny, I've said it on the show, if you get 2 goals from your bottom 6, you'll win every game in the playoffs, because your top 2 lines are going to get you a goal. Your power play is going to get you a goal, and 4 is enough to win anytime you get into the playoffs. So, and that's been a big problem for Toronto. Even the other night, they win the game. Well, yeah, exactly.
Winnipeg's. You had Connor and you had Scheifele that scored, but their next 5 or 6 goal scorers, I don't think had a goal in the series. Mm-hmm. When you look at Perfetti, you look at Niederreiter, you look at Appleton. I had it written down, but like that to me, because then you put McKinnon and you put Rantanen. Rantanen didn't score till game 5, but then you add in 5 goals from Lehkonen and 7 goals from Nichushkin. Yeah. that ends up being the difference in the series. Yeah.
Even like Iafallo and Velarde didn't chip in.
Toffoli had a couple.
But he was quiet a lot of the games.
He was quiet. Monahan 0, exactly. Ehlers 0.
Norris seemed to play well. Like, he seemed to provide and make plays, but it wasn't enough. They didn't get enough, and they didn't get the goaltending. And so goaltending has just been a big this year. I feel like more than other years, there's so many teams that have been, tandems, or we're going to use both goalies. Yeah. LA did it. Even Brossoit came in at one point in that series. Yeah. Let's stay on Boston, Toronto, because I think the big question right now, and Monty made lineup changes after they won 2 in a row. He took Shaddy out. He put Grizz in. Okay. He took Beecher out, and I think he brought the big rig back in, right? Yeah. Who sat down for a couple of games, and it didn't work. Okay. And these guys, when it works, they're heroes. When it doesn't, we shred them. I think Forbert comes back into the lineup. I don't think that's been confirmed, but I think he comes back in tonight. Yeah. I think probably for Mason Lohrei, and I think Grizz comes out and Shaddy goes back in as well. But what do you do in goal? Because I think it's Swayman's net. I think no matter what, it's his net. Even if he loses, I think you still have to go back to him in game 7.
If he loses tonight, they go to Omar in game 7.
I think you set the precedent in the regular season where you alternated, right? Then there were all these questions after Swayman played well in game 1, and then they lose game 2 with Ullmark. And then you go back to Swayman multiple games in a row. You have to stick with Swayman at this point. And he played well in game 5. Yeah, he played really well.
He hasn't let up more than 2 goals.
Yeah, he played he was making unbelievable saves, and you can't that overtime goal. There's nothing he can do. It bounces off a skate and goes backdoor to Nyes. So to me, I think you have to run with Swayman. So I looked at it. I go back to the Avs in 2022. Darcy Kemper had a tough game, and it might have been during the finals. And everybody's like, "Oh, you got to put in Francouz," because Darcy Kemper had the eye injury. Francouz played for
that's right. He had
5-6 games
between the mask, right?
Yeah, Johansson stick through the mask. So Kemper had a tough game. Everybody's like, "You have to go to Francouz," and I said, "No, you have to go back to Kemper, because if you go to Francouz and Francouz doesn't play well, Kemper's coming in with his mind off, right? But if you go to Kemper and he doesn't play well, Francouz has been the backup for the majority of the year. He's already in the mindset that he's ready if the starting goalie doesn't play well. So to me, I think you have to run with Swayman at this point, because you have to keep feeding him those starts because he's played well.
Yeah.
I don't think just because you lose a game in overtime that your team didn't play all that well, I don't think you can switch it up.
They were bad. They were just bad. They were bad. The turnovers
in the first period.
I haven't seen the Bruins turn the puck over like that. And look, I watch Boston as much as I watch anybody because of my friends that play there. And they do not generally turn pucks over like that. And I'm talking
Marshy was losing puck battles, and that never happens. Pasta, exactly. Those guys don't lose puck battles. They always come out with the puck. And I was watching it because we were in studio for the Avs game, so that was on before us. And I was watching it, and I was like, this is not a good sign. Like the whole first period, Marshy lost every puck battle, and that guy does not lose puck battles in practice.
His stick is so good.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Heavy.
Yeah,
People don't realize how heavy Marshy is in a stick battle. I mean, he's one of the strongest guys. Yeah. He uses a little bit of a longer stick.
Yeah.
And so he really can kind of lean that lower hand down. And he's so good at like his wrist strength must be really good because he's so heavy in those little stick battles.
I think I won like 2 puck battles against him in my last year with Boston, the entire season in practice. And both times I celebrated like I scored a goal. Like it was, but he does the same thing to you, right? Like, and it's just like, that's him and Bergie practice as hard as they play, sometimes harder. And it elevates every guy on that team because of it.
I just want to say one last thing on Swayman, and maybe this is me being dramatic, which I tend to do from time to time, but does this playoff performance give Swayman an edge when you talk about the U.S. starting goaltender in the Olympics and Four Nations over Hellebuck with how both guys have played?
Well, so it's interesting you say that.
Right?
So we went through Ryan Miller is a good buddy of mine. He was out here over New Year's with his family skiing, and they stayed with us. And he's done some stuff with USA Hockey. And so part of it is he has to kind of keep in the back of his mind who, he watches the goalies basically. And now he works for San Jose, but over the last year and a half. Yeah. And so
that makes sense because Greer and him were teammates in Buffalo, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Greer's, he brought in a bunch of the Buffalo guys. I think Vanek works there now too. And there's a few other ones, but Millsy, we've talked about this, the U.S. starting goaltenders. So you have Hellebuck, who did not have a good series, Swayman, now
Demko.
I think Demko, exactly, and Andre, right? Mm-hmm. So now all of a sudden that's to me like that is where the U.S. has kind of separated themselves from Canada.
Vic just goes and Joel.
There you go. All options are on the table, but to me, I think Swayman has elevated his game in the last couple of years, and everybody that I've talked to in Boston, like unbelievable guy. I think like the guys love him, they play for him, and so he's inserted himself in that conversation. I mean, do you carry 4 goaltenders, right? Like, I don't know. Like they've got, I mean, that's going to be a really, really tough decision.
5, Johnny, 5. Don't take away from Joel.
There you go. Yeah.
And then, and I know, and I'm projecting out a little bit, but and then you've got Fowler at Boston College, who looks like he's going to be a star NHL goaltender. And I know that
that's early though. That's early.
I know. And I'm not saying for this Olympics, but I'm saying if we're getting back into this every 2-year rotation of international hockey that we're all hoping for, they just have this embarrassment of riches in goaltending right now, coming up through the U.S. hockey development model. So I've got one more question on this Boston Toronto series, and then I do want to pick your brain a little bit about quickly before we let you go with the Rod Brind'Amour Hurricane situation, because that's another organization that you've been around and you probably know, and I know you weren't necessarily there during the glory days of the Carolina Hurricanes.
It's lean years.
but let me ask you, like, if you have to predict this series, this Boston-Toronto series, like what do you see happening here? Do you think Toronto can push this to 7? Do you think Boston gets it done tonight? I mean, I think everybody wants 7. I want 7.
I think everybody wants 7.
League wants 7 for sure.
Yeah, the league wants 7 for sure. I mean, you couldn't script. I mean, 11 years later, it's eerily similar if they get to 7 to what, we went through 2013. I would have a tough time putting money on Boston to lose 3 in a row, is what I would say. I don't know that they get it done tonight, but for me, I just feel like that team and the leaders that they have on that team, like, I just don't know that Marshy would accept losing 3 in a row. And knowing him as well as I do, I think they get it done and they're able to get, I mean, you almost call it escape right now, right? You don't get it done in game 5. You have to go back to Toronto in game 6. I think Boston gets out of it, But yeah, I wouldn't put money on Boston losing 3 in a row. That's what I'll say.
Mm-hmm. But you'll put money on the Leafs tonight.
It's possible. I got to look at a few things.
It's not game set.
We're asking him to pick between his kids right now.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Original sixes.
Yeah.
On his the end your eras tour, Johnny. When you're when in the twilight years of the career, your eras tour.
Yeah,
so let's just hit this Carolina thing really quickly because I feel like it started to really make the rounds on social media really yesterday when that came out. I think somebody tweeted, one of the insiders wrote that there was a contract offer that was pulled, and that it's pulled because Brind'Amour was like, this is miles apart from what I was hoping for. And we know the owner in Carolina has a tendency to not want to pay people. Yep. What's going to happen here with the Rod Brind'Amour thing? Because you would have thought he'd be a Kane for life. You would have kind of thought that's what the situation would be.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
Colby and I said he was unfireable, Johnny. Like,
oh man, that's a tough one. I mean,
like with his legacy there.
Yeah, listen, Roddy is an unbelievable guy. He's a Michigan State guy. He was an assistant coach in Carolina when I was there. He is the Carolina Hurricanes. But we all know the owner there, and you look at like John Forsland, who was the staple of Carolina broadcasting.
I brought this up 2 days ago, Johnny.
The contract negotiations were that far apart. Yeah, and he went to Seattle. Yep. Ron Francis is in Seattle. Yep. Right? Like to me, Hackstall's gone. And Ronnie and Rod have a relationship, and
they got big money ownership.
Exactly. There you go. Big money ownership, right?
Big money ownership in Seattle.
I was talking about this in studio a couple nights ago with Kiefer, and Johnny Mitchell was in there with me, and I was talking about this. I was like, it wouldn't shock me. Now, what I could see happening is whenever everything's said and done, Carolina and Roddy are obviously not on the same page. I could see the Carolina owner basically out of pride more than anything matching whatever offers out there if Seattle is the team that's offering.
Even if it's like $7 million a year, something.
But for a top end coach in the NHL, $6 million is not out of the question. Like $7 million to me. I mean, Babs was making $56 million with 100 hours on the jet every year and a suite at every sporting event. The guy that I went to school with at Michigan State was one of the guys that helped negotiate that contract. Like it was, I don't know all the perks. I just know there was a ton of perks besides the salary. So why is $7 million out of the question? Now, to me, it would be more of a pride thing and like a finger to everybody. Like, oh, everybody calls me cheap. Well, I'll match it. But at the same time, if the disrespect level is there initially, that they're so far apart, Rod doesn't want to leave Carolina.
No,
right? Like not at all.
It's obvious. It's
at
obvious.
The same time, there's pride on both sides too. And if it's a big kind of FU initially, sometimes that's too much to get over. And so. That Seattle has big money. They want to win. And right now they have a head coach opening, and Ronnie Francis is there, and he knows how to build it.
Yeah. And I think, Johnny, every team with an open coaching vacancy is going to be willing to pay him $6 million a year and give him 5 or 6 year deal, because you just don't get many guys like him who are as consistently good, as consistently well respected. You'll never hear a leak to the media that players had anything negative to say about Rod Brind'Amour. Even Tony D, who has been out of the lineup all year, won't say a bad word about Rod Brind'Amour. Now, might have some thoughts about the GM and the owner, but won't utter a bad word about the guy who won't barely put him in the lineup, because that's just it's Rod. That's his aura.
Well, Colby,
it's his aura. It's who he is. He's a guy, like he says it like it is, right? And he talks to you like I've had a lot of coaches in the league. Not everybody talks to you like a human being. And so Roddy's like, I only had him as an assistant. I never had him as a head coach. But to me, like, he's that, like, you want to play for a guy like that, right? You just want to.
And, just a comment in the chat from Matt Mugno. He said, would players follow him if he got a job in Seattle? And I know
100%.
it's tough with contracts and stuff, but, Carolina is a team with a couple of UFAs coming up this year too. Yeah. And, that could be something where, you see that happen a lot in college where, a coach will have his commits and he'll go to another school and they bring the commits with them.
Yeah.
But you don't often see that happen in the NHL. Maybe like the first time that would really kind of happen.
Yeah, I can see it happening. I just look at some of the guys that have thrived under Brind'Amour. Martinook is a big
UFA.
one. Like, UFA, exactly. And, okay, Roddy Brind'Amour's looking at the lineup in Seattle. Like, yeah, you could probably add a couple of pieces there, but you've got guys like, Tanev there, right? You've got guys like Gord, right? Like you don't think that guy's going to thrive under a guy like Rod Brind'Amour, right? And you bring in like a Martinook and I just think that if that were to happen, guys would follow him, right? Yeah. Especially if it's, depending on who it is. He's just he's a guy you want to play for. And I'd say that just having had him as an assistant coach.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That's all I really got for Johnny today. Colby, you got any final thoughts?
No, look, we appreciate you coming on. I think everybody's watching Bruins Leafs tonight. I think, you've got everybody who lives in Toronto hoping for one outcome, and then the entire rest of the league hoping for a different outcome. And it'll be really interesting if Austin Matthews is back in the lineup. I've said over the last couple of days, I think Toronto is doing a major disservice to their players by not telling people what's going on, because the optics are so bad. This is not a normal situation in a normal market where we're hiding injuries. You are making your $13 million a year player look like he doesn't give a shit by not telling people. And I'm sure he cares. Like, I'm sure he does. But like, that's what you're making it look like to the outside world by not telling us.
Well, and he's a guy that doesn't get a lot of flack. He scored 69 goals this year. Like, he doesn't get a lot of that like media intensity like Marner gets or Nylander gets. And if you don't, to me, all of a sudden this opens the door. If he doesn't play tonight and they lose, now all of a sudden stuff starts to refocus towards Austin Matthews.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it opens this door of like, okay, he's not immune to scrutiny. And thus far, I would say he kind of has been.
Well, because he scores.
Yeah, because he scores. Exactly.
Goals.
I mean, Marner puts up.
It's hard, but it's so hard to, how could you shit on a guy?
No, I agree with you, but I think this is one of those things where it almost is like, okay, this is the tipping point where now the scrutiny really picks up.
Yeah. Well, what about this?
Because they're gonna have to get rid of Shanahan. There's no way he survives a loss. Keefe, we already know, is a dead man walking, and
Shanny. It wouldn't shock me if he's still around. That guy just finds a way.
What if Matthews doesn't play?
How many high? I mean, I would. It sounds like he's the one who really makes the decisions around there. Yeah. So it's not like you can say someone else signed these big contracts or signed off on these contracts or the build of the team. If he survives this, then bless his heart. I mean, look, good for him.
It's a 20-year Shanna plan.
Well, what if Matthews doesn't play and they come back and win the series? That's what I'm saying. I'm all for that. I want to hear those narratives.
Yeah, I mean, then I think then you hear less about Marner and right. I mean, like, there's so many scenarios out there that the way this could play out, and
great theater.
It is. Yeah, you can't make you literally cannot write this soap opera.
Yeah, this is NBA shit right here.
All right. Well, look, we hope your daughter feels better, and good luck being dad the rest of spring vacation. So
thanks, guys.
They're keeping you busy, I'm sure.
Yeah, they are. Keep me on my toes.
All right, enjoy the games tonight. Good luck with the second round if you're still doing Colorado. I don't know if you guys are still doing some studio work for the second round.
We do pre and post, because everything goes national, but we do pre and post. So I'll be doing pre and post for the Avs, probably, I don't know, 4 out of every series or so.
All right. Thanks for coming on today. I know it's early in Colorado, guys. Johnny. See ya.
Cheers.
Appreciate it. All right, let's get into, while we're on the topic of Colorado, great guy, always a fun guest. we got to get him on all the time if we can, Colby. I love talking to that guy. He's awesome. But let's get into our Out West worst team of the week, which we do every single Thursday.
I feel like Johnny could be a GM. Like, I could never see him coaching, but I could see him being a GM or a special assistant to a GM, like in that type of role.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, I think so too. He's a lot of fun to talk to, though. I really enjoy him on here as a guest. But our Out West worst team of the week. Gentlemen, we have entered prime spring season. Give yourself or a friend the gift of comfort and style with a Zakara performance hoodie from Out West. Colby and I are wearing them right now. The guys over at Out West are offering these for just $56 as they take care of a little spring cleaning, making room for new colors and styles for the summer. These hoodies are the perfect addition to your wardrobe and are some of the best pieces in the game for everyday wear. But hurry, because limited inventory in certain sizes and colors. You'll want to grab yours before they're gone. Don't miss out on this fantastic deal. Our code CUPPA, CUPPA, in all caps, will work for an additional 15% off during this sale. We wear these every single week. They're probably the most comfortable hoodies I've put on. Colby yelled at me this morning because I had the same one he's wearing, so I had to wear the salmon today. Even though we all know Colby has manned up here a bit and put the salmon on over the past couple weeks. But yeah, these hoodies are awesome. So go to outwestgolf.com, use our code CUPPA, CUPPA, all caps. Colby.
Worst team of the week this week goes to, sorry, Chef Richard. I don't know if you're here today. I don't think I've seen you in the chat today, but it goes to your boys and it goes to the Winnipeg Jets. I feel like people were picking Winnipeg to win the Stanley Cup. Most of the pools I saw, people were picking the Winnipeg Jets to win. It was finally Connor Hellebuck's year. And all of a sudden they flame out 4-1 in the first round of the playoffs. And now you start to wonder, you just gave Hellebuck the big deal. Scheifele re-upped. Okay. Or was it Connor or Scheifele that re-upped?
It was Scheifele.
It was Scheifele that re-upped.
Scheifele and Hellebuck.
Time. They took those big long deals. Hellebuck gets the Vezina nod, and then he completely shits the bed in the playoffs. You just got to wonder, like, does Rick Bowness survive this? I don't know. I mean, we see how short the leashes are for NHL coaches.
Called him out last year too, right? Remember in his post-game presser after they lost last year, they called out the whole team.
So I don't know. 2 years in a row, disappointing playoffs for the Winnipeg Jets. I love Rick Bowness. He's one of my favorite people that I've got to meet on the media circuit. So I hate to see it if it does happen. But look, you are what your results are in this business. And right now, the Winnipeg Jets are our Out West worst team of the week. And I think it's well-deserved because I just didn't see them with enough pushback. Like, where was their spine in the playoffs? Game one, they easily could have lost game one. That could have been a sweep.
Mm-hmm.
If Georgiev gives you an 880 save percentage in game one, this is a sweep. Like, this is, what are we talking about? Is it going to be a different year for the Winnipeg Jets? No, it's clearly not. Where do they go from here? They got rid of PLD. They took the C away. They moved on from Wheeler. They made the changes that they made. Maybe you got to start looking at the core there. And I know the core has contracts, but you start to wonder that, maybe that's the issue here. But I didn't like the way the Winnipeg Jets played in the playoffs, as I'm sure no one did.
Yeah, biggest disappointment by far, I would say. But Colby, you want to talk about the game tonight and our Betway bet of the day?
Yeah, I think there's obviously only one game to look at tonight. So jump in with Betway here. They're giving a great opportunity for a reimbursement of up to $200 on your first bet. Create a new account using the QR code on the screen. Once you create that account, your account is loaded. You make your first bet. If it doesn't hit, no matter how much you bet, they'll reimburse whatever that is up to $200. You can use that $200 to continue playing and betting on your favorite games, your favorite sports. It's not just hockey. It's outside of Ontario only. Please play responsibly as always. So tonight, for our Betway bet of the day, we're going right to the money line, and I'm going to roll with the Boston Bruins. Ooh. I do not think the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to pull this comeback off. They still can't score enough goals, and I just don't see the Boston Bruins having another game where they turn the puck over like that, where they have as little bit of energy. I think Jeremy Swayman's going to have another great game. Why wouldn't he, Johnny? He's been great in the playoffs. Yeah. And so I like Boston at minus 105. I know you're basically even money on either of these two. Obviously, Toronto, the slight favorite on home ice, although I don't know why they haven't shown anybody that they should be a favorite on home ice. So yeah,
home ice disadvantage for the Leafs.
I think Boston's going to take care of business tonight. I like the fact that they're bringing Shaddy and Johnny Beecher back into the lineup. I don't think you change a winning lineup, especially a lineup that just won 2 games in a row. I don't think you can underestimate the leadership, even with when Shattenkirk's not getting big minutes. He's won a cup. He's another calming voice in the locker room. You watch him on the bench talking to Charlie McAvoy, Brandon Carlo. He's like sort of the old man of the group that keeps everybody calm, even if his minutes do get limited. So, look, I think that's what's going to happen. I think that's where we're rolling. Betway is a great partner of ours. They help us make this all worth it. So jump on, get involved with Betway, use the promo codes, use the opportunities. As we get new options, we give them on to you. The other thing we didn't say in the show today, please like and subscribe on the Daily Faceoff YouTube page. It's really important for us. When we get a couple hundred people here in the chat, if people are willing to give us the likes, it helps us grow our show, which then helps us with sponsors, which then helps us be able to do more things with guests and live events and other opportunities. So do us a favor, give us that like, and make sure you subscribe to the Daily Faceoff YouTube page. It'll be a quiet night tonight, Johnny. Only one game.
Oh, no, it won't. It will not be a quiet night.
Why don't you take the last word here?
I was just going to say it will not be a quiet night, especially on Twitter with Leafs Bruins being all the focus around the league. Vic is already pooping his pants, I know, over there. I'm actually going to be the biggest Leafs fan in New York City tonight. I'm wearing a Leafs jersey to the Canuck. I'm going to the Canadian bar to watch the game. Going to enjoy myself with no show tomorrow morning.
What Leafs jersey are you rocking?
I have that one that they gave out at All-Star, that the Bieber one, the black one. The one that you shit on me for wearing on that show.
I don't remember that, but I remember
you weren't. It was the day where the Empty Netters guys came on. I wore the Leafs jersey. And you weren't there.
Oh, when you gave him a glazing for 30 minutes.
Yep, my boys.
That was embarrassing. We should get those guys. We should get those guys back on. I'd like to get those guys on with me because I have a feeling we would end up teaming up against you. That's kind of the feeling.
I don't know. I go back at them a little bit too.
I get in the DMs sometime with those guys, and they have a lot of funny shit to say about you.
They're great. Well, all right. Well, they're talking shit behind my back. We'll make it happen. I'll get them on next week. They're West Coast time, so it's a little bit tough, but we can make it happen. I'm sure they would.
They seem like West Coast guys.
They're LA guys. They live in LA for the last 10 years.
Sort of West Coast vibe in them for sure.
Yeah. But great guys.
Although their Twitter can get a little hyper dramatic at times.
They know how to push buttons.
Their Twitter can be not chill. But you're right. I think they like to push buttons. Also, I saw someone earlier saying that I'm a homer for the Bruins. I'm not a homer for the Bruins. You're
a homer for your boys.
I am a homer for my friends, always and forever. Yeah. I honestly don't care who wins. I picked the Leafs actually in the pool to win the series because that's who I thought would win in our Daily Faceoff pool. So you can't say that I'm a Bruins homer. But
all Colby cares about is Shaddy running PP1.
I want him running PP1. I want JVR in front of the net, tipping pucks. And I want both of those guys to have 3 points tonight. And if that happens, otherwise I don't care. And that's where it goes with all the different teams is I don't care who wins. I just want my friends to put up points and get paid. That's all I want.
And I'll end the show by saying this. I don't think I said it on the show. I think I said it in our pre-production meeting. There's only one game scheduled for Saturday.
Hey, Tommy, if you don't like me giving it to Johnny, well, I could just give you one bit of advice. Don't watch or listen. How about that?
What did he say? What's happening? What did Tommy say?
Tommy said, Colby always gives it to Johnny. It's not entertaining from my point of view, yet you're here in the chat every day.
Yeah. It's all good. I can handle it. But what I was going to say is there's only one game scheduled for Saturday, 8 p.m., ESPN Plus, ABC, Leafs Bruins Game 7. You don't think this game is a little bit rigged tonight? The league wants that. They want that money. They want those ratings. No, but I was going to make the joke. I was going to make the joke. The only way this game is rigged is if the Leafs don't get power plays because their power play.
Well, look, I'm going to make one more comment.
Okay.
And it's
I also
not
got to hop.
about
I got to get the
game.
Rangers practice.
I know you got to go.
Yeah.
It's actually something Tommy just said that is correct.
What?
He said the Oil played a responsible game yesterday and won. They look, the Oilers, the last couple of games of their series look like a team that's going to know how to win. You know, they let LA hang around a little bit. They give up that 6-on-5 goal late. But ultimately, you know, you're talking about a game where for 90% of the game, they only give up 2 goals. I know they give up the one late, 6-on-5, but that is a winning formula. You know the power play is going to score. You know the big boys are going to come through. So Merle says the 4-5 game series are killing us. I know, but look, it's part of what we got going here. The first round. That's why this first round hasn't been great. It just hasn't. Let's just call it like it is. It hasn't been great.
I think the games have individually been great, but the outcomes in the series have not been, if that makes sense. Like all the games are entertaining, you know?
Yeah, I think the game's somewhat. Yeah, for the most part. I think Dallas Vegas has been really entertaining.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
But like, did you really feel like the LA Kings Edmonton series, those games were all entertaining?
I mean, I could happily watch the Oilers on the power play.
Yeah, because on the power play, they're like the Harlem Globetrotters. But I'm just saying, again, we go back to that. We'd love it to be like 3-3 with 8 minutes to go, 5 minutes to go, because that just builds tension and that just builds, you know, the anxiety that I think makes NHL playoffs great.
I still think, and this is the last thing I'm gonna say because I actually do have to go, but I think that Nashville-Vancouver series has gotten nearly enough credit. Those games have been great. And tomorrow night, Friday night in Nashville, going to be a sick game. So you guys won't hear from us tomorrow. So that's something that I'm looking forward to too. I've loved watching all those games. And I think Army's done a lot of those calls too. And we talked about that yesterday and he's been great. So
what are you going to ask Peter Laviolette today?
I want to ask about that third guy high in the offensive zone. I think the man-to-man defense for Carolina, he's probably not going to give me a detailed answer because he's not going to give away their X's and O's and their tactics.
And he knows that you always ask him like hockey.
I try to.
Yeah, you usually go in there prepared with some sort of tactical question. And I almost feel like he's at this point with you now where he kind of smirks as he's replying to you because he's like, I know. He kind of knows that I know the answer. Like, he's like, I know you know that, like, I'm giving you bullshit right now, but most of the other people in the room have no idea. They'll just eat it right up.
That's the hard part too. And Brian Boyle said it last week. Like, it's tough to ask the question when you kind of already know the answer, but like you want to hear them break it down, you know? So I was more so going to gear it toward, what do you think the Islanders did successfully against Carolina that you guys can mimic or even, do better? We'll see, but maybe I'll shit my pants and come up with something else. So, I don't know, but thank you everyone in the chat for the great week. This week was a lot of fun. We'll be back Monday and thanks Vic. And enjoy the games tonight. We'll see. Hopefully see us at Game 7 on Saturday night between Boston and Toronto. But I'm signing off. Have a great day.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit